This video is related to a separate video on idea generation. In this particular video we're going to look at concept development, the product development, and the business analysis that's necessary when thinking about introducing a new product. Now we start with the concept development process, which looks into new ideas in more detail, and it determines or attempts to determine whether the idea is feasible, whether the idea should be taken up or not. So we start with an idea. The idea really is just it's a concept. It's just something in our minds. Perhaps we've articulated it on paper, but it hasn't got very far. Now the concept development is taking it the next step along. There is more focus taken into the marketing and development of the product. So there's more emphasis on will the product be successful in the marketplace? Does it address a customer need? And what sort of development is necessary? It may be possible to prototype the product and test it with customers, but it depends of course on the nature of the product. It may be a service, in which case prototyping is not exactly the right word. A service may be illustrated or demonstrated to potential customers. But as far as possible at this stage, what the company is trying to do is pick up information about the product to see how it would be received in the market. And to this end, research is the key, trying to determine whether it's worth going ahead, making perhaps a large expenditure on development and then on marketing and tooling up to produce it, altering the workplace to accommodate it, and so on, to see if it's worthwhile, to see what the customer reaction will be. Now, concept development relies on the following feedback from customers. Do customers understand the new idea? Do they have a need for it? And do they understand it? Can they relate to the product? Or is it something that requires some thinking about on their part, and perhaps they're not prepared to do that, they're not prepared to learn the product? They want something which is easy to use, fits in with their current lifestyle, fits in with the other products they purchase. Something new may be a challenge. So do they understand it? Does the product represent distinct features, benefits for customers? And is there a need for the product? If there's a need for the product, if the current set of products that customers can access, if they don't entirely meet the customer's requirements, if there is a niche, if there is a gap in that selection of products that's available to the customers, and this product fills the gap, then it is more likely to succeed. Of course, the big question is, would the customers buy the product? Would they see it as fulfilling a need that is hitherto unfulfilled? And if it does fulfill the need, would they be prepared to pay for it? Would perhaps the customers buy the product instead of some current brands in the market? Would they switch away from something perhaps that's already in the market that they currently buy, and would they buy the new one? Customers are brand loyal. Once they've bought a product several times and the product has given them satisfaction, they may continue to buy it. They become loyal to a particular product. Well, a new product which replaces the existing one may have problems penetrating the market, may have problems getting in, because the customers resist it. The customers, or the likely customers, should be asked to make suggestions for improvements. as far as possible during the whole process of considering whether to introduce a new product or not, customers and potential customers, I should say, should be asked and consulted what would they like to see. What should the product look like? What should it do? And I suppose also, how much would they be willing to pay for it? The business analysis, well, the product needs to fit into the business. So this stage looks into the financial aspects of the new idea, whether it is financially feasible. Would the new product generate enough cash? It's an investment. Perhaps new machinery will be required, and perhaps new workers and new staff, some of them perhaps quite specialized in a particular area. So there is investment. What's the return on the investment? Would the introduction of the new product generate sufficient cash to give a good return on the investment? The following are factors the business need to consider. First of all, the demand for the product. Is the pricing realistic? Given the product and given the importance of the product to customers, is the pricing realistic? What's the potential sales for the product? How big is the market? What competitors exist? How can the business generate sales in the face of competition from existing competitors? And can the business encourage customers to buy the product and to return and buy it again? What's the cost of the product? How many what percent, if you like, of the organization is going to be dedicated to the production of this? How does it rank in terms of the production portfolio that the business has got? Will it take a lot of resources? Will a lot of facilities be required? Will the business need to get specialist machines? Will it require specialist workers? How will the stores cope, and distribution and logistics? How will they manage? And given the initial sales, will there be return sales? Will customers want to come back and buy it in the future? And what's the likelihood that costs will fall as the business produces more over time? Are there economies of scale involved in the production of the product? In fact, what's the break even as well? What amount must be sold in order to break even? So quite a bit of thinking is required just to determine whether the product should be produced. We've got two major parts here, demand and cost, two major considerations that need to be taken into account. And of course, part and parcel of this is looking at the competition. You could say it's a part of the demand, but looking at competition, what is the competitive rivalry? How many companies produce similar products? And what are the strengths of those companies, and what are their weaknesses? And if the business innovates the product, will the competitors copy it? Will they adopt practices developed by the company itself? And can the business block competitors from copying its innovations? So there are quite enormous questions to answer. And right at the very start, it's just a concept. Then it moves to a little firmer with perhaps a prototype, and later on to some sort of testing and market research and so on. It's all a question of acquiring information. But of course, the information it's acquiring, the competitors can get that information as well. Competitors who are already in that particular segment of the market, They know the customers, they know the outlets, they know the requirements. Their marketing people have been feeding back information to them, perhaps for a long period of time. So there are issues then about whether it's worthwhile taking them on and trying to compete with them. There's also the need for investment, and investment in machines, in people, and also investment in trying to penetrate the market, in promotion and advertising and developing distribution channels. So everything must be done, everything must be sorted out. The business must have a plan, and the plan must address the problems of promotion, getting into the market, launching the product, even in the face of competitors. Looking at advertising, general marketing, looking at distribution. It must persuade perhaps warehouses and retailers to hold the product. It must have some sort of strategy for selling, the selling process. So there's a lot to think about in terms of investment as well. And overriding all of this is this major concern as to whether the product will be profitable. Now the concern here is looking at costs, looking at likely demand, looking at what the competitors' reactions will be, looking at the costs of getting into the business and investing in the resources necessary to produce the product. After all of that's taken into account, trying to assess whether the product will be profitable. Will there be a good return on the investment? What's the risk? What's the pricing strategy? How much should the product be put into the market at? What will customers pay? But the whole idea behind developing the product is to increase profits. That's why businesses exist. Businesses exist to generate profits. So given all of the uncertainty and all of the areas of expenditure that are needed in the launch of the new product, is it still reasonable to think that the product will make a profit for the business? That's the question. Product development, well, physical product is produced. This stage, if a physical product is produced, this stage involves developing the product. If it's a product that we can touch and it's going to be produced, there's a problem of actually developing it. What should it look like? What are its attributes? How can it be produced? And so on. But it's necessary to come up with a design which will be attractive in the market, which will gain sales in the market. It's also necessary to have good packaging so that the product is well presented. It looks good, it looks professional, it looks attractive to the customer, so the customer will want to have the product. Will it fit in with the brand image of the other items that are produced by the business? Does it fit into their portfolio? And if it does, will it benefit from any branding that's already taken place for the other products that the business produces? So there's an issue as to whether it may benefit from the reputation of the business, from the status of the business in the market. Where should the product be positioned in the market? What segment of the market is it aimed at? Is it aimed at a particular demographic group? Is it aimed at middle income, lower income, upper income? Is it aimed at male or female? Where's the product positioned? Who is it targeting? And what are the characteristics of the segment that it will be addressing? What are the characteristics and what are the requirements of that segment? And how well is that particular segment of the market already catered for by the competitors and by the existing products in the market. The product is then introduced to the target market for approval. So having produced the product, having thought about the product, and if everything is still considered to be positive and the product is going to be produced, then it needs to be introduced into the market for approval. Perhaps a small test run, perhaps detailed market research involving the product, perhaps involving focus groups and interviews on the streets and demonstrations of the product to select and perhaps randomly selected customers to get their feedback. But is the product safe to use? That's another consideration. If there's any doubt about its safety, it will not sell. So all the components should be safe. The fitments and attachments should be safe. The design should also be safe. No sharp edges or no parts that protrude and could cause damage. So the product design is very important to ensure that the product is safe to use. It's necessary to determine, as I've been saying earlier, whether the product is financially feasible. Is it worthwhile doing it? Will it cover the cost and will it generate a profit? As I said earlier, the business exists so as to generate a profit for its shareholders. But there are many stakeholders involved in the business as well. There are the workers and the management and the people further on the supply chain and the suppliers of components and raw materials. There are many stakeholders involved, and each one of them wants to see a successful product. So it's important to do some sort of assessment of the financial feasibility of the product to see, will it be worthwhile making it, introducing it and producing it. Is the product easy to understand and use? If customers have to invest in learning how to use the product, invest time and effort, they may be put off. So the product should be easy to understand and easy to use. If it is, it stands a better chance. Is it safe and cheap to manufacture? Workers, their welfare is very important. So if there are issues surrounding the production of the item which can cause hurt or harm to the workers, if it's dangerous to produce in any way, there are issues that need to be addressed. And is it cheap to produce? Does it fit in with the existing lines of production? Perhaps there are economies in using the existing machinery or the existing capability of the business to produce the extra items by switching over production, and just a small amount of retooling generates the new product. If that's the case, it stands a better chance of being produced. So is it safe and is it cheap to manufacture? And can the packaging be designed in a way that will attract customer attention? Will the packaging and the branding that goes with the product, will this appeal to the customers so that they will want to buy the product? So it needs to meet customer needs with ease. It needs to identify what the customer needs are and then meet those needs. And the product should naturally fit the needs of the customers so that the customers want the product. And finally, it should be eco-friendly. In today's world, we are conscious of the damage that we've done to the environment over many years. We're conscious that the ecosystem needs support, and we need to be careful about how we produce and the amount of materials we use in production. So perhaps having luxurious packaging, which is just going to be thrown away, is not a good way to go. So it needs to project a caring attitude towards the environment and towards the wider ecosystem. So these are some of the issues that we can identify in product and business analysis related to product development. You can see from the list there are many issues, and many points would suggest that a great deal of care, I should say, should be exercised in the development of a new product. It relates to not just the customer, but to the environment, to the way in which the product is produced, to the competitors that exist in the market, to the potential competitors that may come in the future. So there are many issues surrounding the production and development of a new product. These are some of the ideas that we can identify in this session. And that's all I'm going to deal with in this session. I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.